I kind of feel like this shouldn't be a particular number, but it is. The game is meant to be fun. Yeah, the game is meant to be fun. That's a new one. I have heard of many GMs who are going, oh, I have burnout. I don't want to run any more games. Sometimes the burnout is genuine because they're running 6 or 7 games a week. That's insane. Apparently it's doable, but it is absolutely insane. Sometimes it's because they get bored. It's because the game is so much work that it feels like a second job. That's why a lot of people my age, which is, old, I'm joking. That's why a lot of people, once they get careers and families, they stop playing because it becomes work. And you're like, but it shouldn't be work. It should be fun. Why is it work? It's work because I have to do so much effort and I have to do this and I don't get any rewards back from my players, etc., etc., etc. You're going, that is so sad because that is so avoidable. And that's what this whole series is going to be about, is about making it a fun journey rather than work. We don't want work. That's not, a hobby should not be work. A hobby should be fun. So that's what we're going to be dedicating ourselves to, is that this is going to be fun. Again, with the social contract, hey, fellow players, we're all going to have fun or we're not going to do this. So this is what I need to have fun. Not giving me that is not having fun. Then why am I doing it? Right? And if you have players who are going, well, I'm not going to give you a backstory. I'm not going to give you this. I'm not going to give you that. Well, that is part of my fun. And so if you're not going to give me that, then I'm not going to give you any monsters. So you go into the dungeon and you get to the end and you get the treasure. We all are in this together. We all have to contribute various factors towards having fun. You will have fun or you will not have fun. Yeah. I say point number 7 with a touch of irony. You do not need anything to roleplay, including books on how to roleplay better. You don't need them, but you want them. You want them. In order to roleplay, you need yourself and at least one other person. You can, in theory, roleplay with yourself, but I would advise trying to limit that as much as possible, simply because it could be seen as being something you don't necessarily want to entrench. Have somebody else and you can roleplay. You don't need dice, you don't need pencils, you don't need paper, you don't need fancy interfaces, you don't need digital stuff, you don't need anything along those lines. You can roleplay with mechanics with just one other person. So I suppose in order to roleplay, you do need some kind of mechanics. You need some kind of framework within which to work. Whether that involves dice and stuff, doesn't matter, but you do need a framework. So that's one thing that you need. Okay, so you need one thing in order to roleplay. You need some mechanics. But mechanics are free. You can make up your own mechanics, right? So you don't need anything to roleplay. And a lot of times we see these things that we are supposed to buy, like every time I mention a sponsor, it's like, buy the sponsor's stuff because it's cool. On this channel, we will only ever promote, by the way, stuff that we will actually use rather than stuff that's just cool and shiny. So when you see all of that stuff, it's about saying, well, financial security first. That's one of our mottos, financial security first before role-playing. But I do like that. I do like that. I do like that. But then it's about making sure that what you are bringing to the table, again, is going to help you and support you and inspire you rather than hinder you or create more work for you. So a good friend of mine said, I love minis, but I have so many minis now. It takes me so long to find the minis that I'm looking for to use in my game for this evening that I have to have an app on my phone which tracks all of my minis so I can find the mini that I'm looking for. That is where you're going, okay, good idea to use the minis. We'll talk about minis in a couple months' time. Bad idea to get to a point where you are now overburdened by these minis, or where these minis are now creating anxiety and stress in your space. There is a change that needs to happen there. And that change is deciding what is important to you and what is not important to you, and then sticking to that. All right. So you don't need anything else. You don't need all the fancy books. You don't need fancy maps and all that kind of stuff. It is what makes your game better for you. And again, we're going to explore and unpack that later on. This is one that I learned the hard way. Number 8, not everyone is going to like your game. Not everyone is going to like the way that you run your games. I have had players who go, yeah, you know what? They're fun. There's no doubt about that. But there's just too much stuff going on. I want it to be simpler. There's layers, and there's context, and there's tone, and there's themes, and there's 16 missions that could happen, and I don't know which ones to take, and that is absolutely fine. I've also had players who go, no. You, what you do is you ignore the real stuff and you kind of focus on the filmic stuff. It feels like I'm playing in a film in your game, and I don't want that. I want to feel like I'm playing in real life. I don't want to play in real life because I live in real life. And although it's a fun place to live, absolutely, and I wouldn't change my situation for almost any other situation that there is, I want to get away from that. I want to go into the Hollywood where I can leap across chasms and land on the bridge of ships and not break all my ankles and legs and arms and things. I want to have that kind of fantasy escapism. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But bear in mind, not everyone's going to like your game, and that is okay. As long as you like your game and you have at least one other player who's going to sit at the table with you, you are golden. You are running a great game. Bear that in mind. Almost there. You are going to make mistakes. You are definitely going to make mistakes. Accept it and move on. No one is perfect, and there is no such thing as an irreparable mistake. You can always fix a mistake. If you make a rules call and you discover later on that the rule is completely wrong, that's okay. Acknowledge it, learn from it, learn it, absorb it, take it into yourself, and then move on. It's going to happen. There's just too many rules, too many role-playing systems, too many player decisions, too many player ideas, too many NPCs, too many encounters for you never to make a mistake. Sometimes those mistakes are going to be you caused the gaming session to not be fun. And that's a big mistake. And that's a fear that a lot of GMs have. It's going to happen from time to time. I still, to this day, will run a session and go, guys, I'm kind of sorry. I kind of felt like the session dragged. And the rest of the players will go, no, it didn't. It was insane. This was a great session. I'm going, really? Is that what you took away from this? Okay. So you are going to make mistakes. And sometimes that's in thinking that you have made a mistake when you actually haven't. So accept it, absorb it, learn it, and move on. This last one is a mistake that I made for, I would say, the first 10 years of my role-playing experience. And that was the mistake of not playing other role-playing systems. I only played Dungeons and Dragons. And when new systems came on board, I was like, nope, not interested. It's not Dungeons and Dragons. And when Dungeons & Dragons Advanced 2nd Edition changed to Dungeons & Dragons 3 or 3.5, I was like, I don't want to change from 2 to 3.5. 2 is great. 2 is perfect. 2 is amazing. I was very reluctant, very reluctant to change until I did. And then when 4 came out and 5 came out, I was like, I'm not changing. 3.5 is perfect. I still personally think 3.5 was, in my opinion, the best iteration that we've had thus far. Certainly, I know it wasn't as streamlined or as coded or as the current version is, but I have a soft spot for it, probably because I spent the most time playing in that particular system. The problem is, I only became a better GM when I started to play other role-playing systems, even other fantasy role-playing systems. When I started to play Lone Wolf, when I started to play fighting fantasy stuff, when I started to play Warhammer, fantasy, all of the other role-playing systems made me such a better GM. Why? Because I was exposed to some more of those core threads, those core fundamental rule ideas, as well as solutions to certain things. You look at it and you go, well, the fantasy genre has never had to deal with mental hacking or with computer hacking or with starship battles. But if I want to have some kind of aerial combat, what do? Well, now I'm drawing on core mechanics that were developed in other role-playing systems, and I'm now incorporating them into this current role-playing system. And because I know the fundamental rules that this one is using, I can adapt them fairly easily. So it makes me more versatile, and what it's doing is automatically it's removing a burden from me to try and come up with a whole brand new rule set. Well, no, now I'm just relying on rule sets that other people have come up with, that I've experienced and enjoyed, and that I know kind of work. So now I'm just adapting them across and off I go. I don't even have to pause. I can just keep going with the game and just adding in the mechanics as I need to. This is, I think, a fundamental that we need to understand. The more we expose our intellect, our minds, our creative energies to different ways of role-playing, the stronger and the better we become. Whereas if we close ourselves off and we don't want to have different experiences, well, we are literally limiting ourselves to a singular point of view. And I think that is never going to help you when you are dealing with multiple points of view, which is what we are doing when we get multiple people sitting around the table. So for this 1.3, chapter 1.3, these are the 10 things that I believe we should fundamentally absorb and accept and adopt as our social contract as being a GM. Now, if you agree with me, the only way to show that is hitting that like button or leaving a comment in the comments down below. If you want to be alerted to when these new chapters drop, which is each week, hit that subscribe button and then you'll get a little red dot or a little alert saying, hey, there's a new video and you can come and check us out. Until next week, all I have to say is a big thank you to all of our patrons who make this video series possible and who receive a weekly podcast as well as other benefits for being part of the Patreon, and to you for watching all the way through until the end. Until next week, happy gaming.